Hello and welcome to episode 73 of Kaiju Curry House. This is your host Joe, and I am joined by our regular host Paul. Tonight we've got a special treat for you. We've got the director-producer of Ape vs. Monster, Mr. Daniel Lusko, and he is also the owner of Keystone Films, which co-produced the film. How you doing, Daniel?
I'm doing really well. It's awesome to be on this show. I love what you guys are doing.
Oh, thanks. Thanks a million. Well, we have primed Daniel for what we normally do at the beginning of every episode. What have Kaiju been up to? And I am going to go ahead and start off by asking you, Daniel, what have Kaiju been up to?
Okay, so I've been up to making this Ape vs. Monster movie, which has been a bunch of fun. I'm excited to talk about it with you guys. We made it for ridiculous constraints, but we are thrilled with what came out and the energy that's in the movie, and love watching these monsters clash. And I'm excited. I've also just this last week watched the Godzilla vs. King Kong movie that just came out with my kids. I have 6 kids, and we watched it, and we loved it. I was blown away by that movie. So that's the big boy movie, and I love that one as well. So you were mentioning, what monster movies you've been watching. I wondered, have you guys seen that one?
Oh, yes.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Absolutely loved it as well. So much fun.
It is a
so good,
dumb, rowdy, fun movie. It is
it totally is.
It's a popcorn movie, and that's just like something that we've been missing. Just a popcorn movie that everybody knows this film is not trying to be like intelligent. It's trying to be fun, and people accepted it for being fun. And I really hope that stays true, because there have been a lot of films that have come out like the last 5 years, and they weren't taken as being fun. They were like, oh, well, that movie made no sense or whatever. Like the recent Hellboy film that came out. Love that movie.
Yeah,
it was
that was good fun as well.
It was hilarious. It was fun. It wasn't for kids, but I really enjoyed it. And then you have all these critics saying like, well, I don't know. There was a lot of crude language in that film. It's just leave it alone. But yeah, it's a great film.
It's like they want to put it through the filter of their life experience. I mean, we didn't go into the cinema to go back to college or to go to high school. We didn't go there to go to the doctor's office. We're there to let go of our problems and just go for a ride. Okay, we've got enough problems in our life. Let's go there and suspend our disbelief and just have a good time. When I see critic reviews of my movies or other movies, I just think, don't you guys have anything better to do? Like, can you just enjoy the fun? I watched the big Godzilla vs. King Kong movie. I love our movie. I love ours for a whole different reason than I love their movie. But like when I watched King Kong go to Antarctica in this new movie, and then he goes through this hole, and then he falls through this big tunnel, and suddenly he's in this other. I have no idea what's going on in this movie, and I don't really care. I'm having fun.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's the whole point. The escapism of film, and giant monster movies do a great job with it. So now that we are going to like totally pick your brains about Ape vs. Monster. So we're going to hold on to that. But now you get to ask the fabulous question, which I've posed to you, to another person in the panel. So go ahead.
Oh, okay. Well, Paul, what have Kaiju been up to?
Well delivered, Daniel. Thank you.
Brilliant.
Thank you. My best. Not to screw it up. I was trying hard.
So I've been watching Godzilla Singular Point on Netflix. That's the anime that was in Japan, is now made its way, I believe, internationally. I'm watching it dubbed, so it's the English voices. And I know, Joe, you mentioned before that they're a little bit
they sound
like
younger.
they're quite younger, but it didn't bother me at all. I'm pleased to say that it didn't faze me at all. I've completely enjoyed it. It's got better the more I watch it. And you're right. It just ends. I need to see the next. I need to see the next. I think I'm about halfway through on episode 7, I believe. And it's just been really good. So yeah,
it's like
thoroughly enjoy it.
it's like the Stranger Things of kaiju. It's just like, just when you think it can get weirder or there's like another like conspiracy or something, it just like flips it and is like, wait a second, there's more.
Yeah.
Have you seen anything for Godzilla Singular Point, Daniel?
No, I have not. I'll have to look it up. That's exciting.
Yeah, it's really fun. It's a slow going. I mean, I would say it's similar to the film Alien, on couple of plot levels. It starts slowly, and then it escalates over the course of 13 episodes, where the final episode is just basically action. So
Wow.
it's one of those really lovely crafted slow build stories,
My
and
favorite kind. Yeah.
those are the best. And what's really wonderful about it is they've taken so much from all the Godzilla lore since 1954, and they've plugged it into these 13 episodes. And it has like a nod or an Easter egg in every episode. There's more Easter eggs in these 13 episodes than I'd say there were during the whole stint of Marvel's films up to Infinity War. And it was just really fun to see from the perspective of a fan. If you're watching it, or if you're looking to watch it, it does have a lot of artificial intelligence and physics science thrown into it, but it's done in such a way that it's pretty tertiary and it's really fun. I can't say enough good things about it, but I said in our last episode, I'll say it again, the English dub, if you have heard the original Japanese voice cast, the English dub, the characters sound younger, which is a bit jarring if you saw the original version. But if you were going to watch Japanese with subtitles, the subtitles have been cut down so that you can read and get enough of the plot whilst the scenes are progressing. So they've cut a lot of dialogue out of those subtitles. So if you want to get the full plot and all the details of the story, which there is a lot, you'll want to listen to the dub. The dialogue was translated very faithfully from the original Japanese scripting. So I would recommend that. But it is a great series. It is fantastic. And it has lots of nods to very obscure Godzilla characters.
I think that's my favorite bit. The fact that Godzilla hasn't made much of an appearance, despite it being Godzilla Singular Point. It's focusing on all the other creatures.
I know.
So we're seeing
I
Rodan and Anguirus, and you've got a little toy.
I finally got a Titanosaurus reference in a Godzilla movie. I was really happy. So one of my favorite monsters is this very obscure one that was only in one film. He's bright orange, and apparently nobody in Japan seems to like him, so he never gets put in anything. So that's the tragedy of it all. But yeah, so Godzilla Singular Point. Well done,
yeah,
Paul.
so I've been watching that, and
Well,
other than that,
check that out.
Yeah, check that out if you get a chance. And
the animation's really good too. Yeah.
Oh yeah, splendid. I mean, apart from the AI got a bit annoying for me, but the little dog that kind of frustrated me a few times. But other than that, yeah, splendid. Absolutely recommend it. And just saying, other than watching that, I've been playing a game called Carrion, which I previously recommended. I went back on just to make a little video for the YouTube channel, and it turns out there's a whole new free bunch of DLC, which is a little story based at Christmas time where you're still the same creature that's stuck in a lab, but you're now fully powered up and you just need to escape. It takes 45 minutes to an hour. So if you played the game, go back to it because there's now free content. And if you haven't, then please check it out. Joe, what have Kaiju been up to?
In terms of actual kaiju stuff, I've watched Ape versus Monster. That's been my great contribution since we last recorded. I also have dipped my toe back into Magic the Gathering. I fell off the wagon, but I've come back for a few things because they've recently released a Dungeons and Dragons set, which of course has giant monsters in it. And it was really fun because they used all the original Dungeons and Dragons designs. Some of the artwork is referenced. It's really beautiful. And I just kind of picked a few things out that I wanted. You know, the Taresks, a gold dragon, a white dragon, and it's based on the Forgotten Realms for any D&D fans out there. So it has Drizzt and Icing Death and a couple of really cool nods to the lore of that. So it was just kind of fun to see that.
Did it have all the Godzilla cards in it? Was that the one that
Magic did that. They did do an expansion when there were alternate art versions of some of the cards, and the alternate art versions were Godzilla, Kaiju, and characters. So Magic, there are lots of promotional cards, and some of them are restricted or banned from regular play because Magic can be very competitive. There's indeed some people that make their living off of playing Magic.
Wow.
So yeah, okay. But in any case, the Godzilla cards, they were just alternate art versions, which is a very tasteful way of, giving out promos or allowing people access to these cards in the game. And as alternate art versions, you just have a different picture, but the powers and everything remain the same. So everybody got to have fun with Godzilla in the game. But yeah, I'll periodically, come back and see what's there. And because originally what got me into that game was the beautiful art that they put on everything. It really is outstanding. And yeah, I dipped my toe back into that. And it's not always a cheap hobby, but luckily this time it cost me about £5 to get everything that I wanted, and that was happy times. But yeah, so without further ado, let's move on to the main topic of tonight's discussion, Ape versus Monster. Daniel, can you take us through the conception of this film? When did you first get the idea? When did this start to form?
Well, this started toward the end of 2019. Asylum sent me the script after let me look at the treatment. So they developed the treatment at the Asylum, and I looked at the outline, and immediately when I heard it was the Godzilla versus King Kong concept, I wanted to dig into it. They were actually surprised because I had never done anything like this before. I'd never dealt with this genre of movie. But it really just intrigued me, and I wanted to immerse myself in it. So it wasn't my concept. It was something the Asylum had developed internally. Of course, they have the track record of knowing when another bigger movie is coming along, and they want to do something internally that can go alongside that release, but on a more of a guerrilla filmmaking style. And I love that challenge because historically I've always, ever since I was a kid, when I made little movies, I wanted to take whatever I had and just create the greatest production value imaginable. So I don't mind having those constrictions. I just want to imagine what we can create and make the most of it. So I looked at the script. It looked impossible. It looked like something we could probably never get done in the production schedule that we had for the budget that we had. And that's what I liked about it. I am not someone who's, known all about these movies forever. I've always watched King Kong. I love King Kong movies. So it was more of just an osmosis for me of getting to know and throwing myself into studying those. And we started production within like 8 to 12 weeks from me reading the script. So I kind of set everything down in my life and just storyboarded everything through and through and began just studying these characters, because for me, it's about the emotion. It's about getting into the mindset of the characters, because I know for me as an actress director on set, most of the time, it's going to be me becoming those characters if I want the actors to believe in it, because we don't have the budget. I have to throw myself into it completely and be able to believe that these characters are real. In order to do that, I have to feel where they're coming from.
Okay, we'll just take a quick break and then we'll be right back. Hello and welcome back to part 2 of Kaiju Curry House. This is episode 73 and it's myself, Joe, and Daniel Lusko, the director-producer of Ape vs. Monster. Daniel, before we left, you were telling us about the production of the movie and how it's quite fast-paced. And obviously, you've had to film well, there's still lots of restrictions, I imagine, with COVID. So it'd be really great to hear more about, how long this took and how you managed to do it in a, such a short period of time.
So Ape versus Monster is on par in terms of its schedule with a lot of Asylum movies, low budget movies. It's 6 days of production. So if you have six days to shoot, it's the way I like to think about it is like a special forces operation. So if a military unit is going in for a mission, all that time leading up to it is really where you have to get your mind into the game of what you have to do. So efficiency is paramount, and I aim to do an excellent job. I'm sure when people watch low budget movies, they may have a perception of, well, they're just, trying to do something cheap just to make some money or trying to make a ripoff. Some people may perceive a low budget movie like this that way, but that's not the truth of the way I'm approaching it, and why I believe even for a movie of this budget or a schedule of this schedule, it's actually very competitive to get into the position to make this type of a movie. So efficiency is everything, because you can't waste a second. You can't waste a second of what you have leading up to production, because I know typically if I'm sent a script like I was sent this one, there's already been a significant amount of development, of scrutiny over the script, over the outline. The Asylum has a great development team. They've already looked at the sales opportunities. In fact, the movie is funded from the distribution money that's coming in. They've already factored all of that coming in. So when I've got it, it's much like, I think, a special forces team being handed a mission. They're saying, here's what your mission is. Here's the amount of time you have to do it. Go and get it done. And if you fail to get it done, we will quickly hand that mission to somebody else because it has to be done. So I don't waste a second. I treat the 8 weeks or so every single day and night leading up to production like we're already in production. I'm making choices. One great filmmaker said, you don't get anywhere until you start making choices. So make them, even if they're the wrong ones, as soon as possible. I will start choosing shots. I have clippings of every other movie that could possibly fit into that genre that span my walls, anything that I could associate with. And I'm storyboarding every single shot out. Even if it's not the right shot, I want to be investing my energy into it. Because if that's not the right shot, hopefully it will lead me to the right one. And I got to sit in a room with Steven Spielberg for an interview one time, and he was saying that he did a lot of that too. He did a lot of storyboarding, and he knows that he might get there on the day and see something else that's better than that shot, as I often do. But still, you've made a choice. You have a starting point. You have somewhere to go, and that way you're not showing up on set going, I wonder where the monster would be. I wonder where the ape would be. I wonder where they're going to come in. You can't be doing that. You don't have time for that. You have to already be in place of, this is where I think it's going to go. And then your DP says to you, well, but what if he came from over there? And what if they landed here? That's fine. But you know what I'm saying? Like, you've already pre-visualized and imagined it. So that's how I make the schedule work, is by going in with strong choices to the DP and to the actors too. I make significant choices about the staging as well. And sometimes that can frustrate the actors. I'm an actor as well. And I'm okay shifting things to a degree, but I also want to have an orchestration already established that we can tweak and adjust as we go on. So we always make our days. We have 10 to 12 hour shooting days. Really, it comes down to about maybe a 10 or 11. But I minimize setup time to maximum of an hour, sometimes 90 minutes if it's an extreme lighting setup. And I look at the page count and I say, okay, we're going to be shooting 10 pages in this lab. Okay, I'm going to give the DP 2 hours to light this. And I will, because I'm the line producer as well. So I will be able to say, okay, this is what we have. We're going to make our day. It's just a matter of how I have to adjust my coverage to adapt to the limitations that we're experiencing. So there are times where I give the DP more. Maybe I even give him 3 hours. That's a lot of time. Usually it's less. But we've already talked about the lighting and the blocking in advance. So we're really there to execute, and not really deliberate much at all. I will deliberate between setups while they're getting ready for the next setup. I've already picked the shot for the next setup. Then I might take some time to really think through some of the other things. But in order to be effective and finish a movie in 6 days, it's the schedule of what you would shoot an episode of a TV series. And then that's an average schedule 5 days for a 40 to 50 minute episode of a TV series. And that's like block shooting meaning you're shooting several scenes together at once, and you're shooting standard coverage, wide, medium, over the shoulder, and maybe an insert or two. But I operate that way, but with usually a signature master shot that's usually more unique, and that's something that I've planned in advance in order to make it feel more organic.
Yeah, I had no idea it was that fast paced. That's crazy.
Yeah, in those kinds of situations, you definitely have to have an outline and a storyboard. That's for sure. So I'm just curious, when you do the outlining and storyboarding, I guess you'd call it pre-production. So when you're doing the outlining and storyboarding, when you get that to like a point that you like, do you send your storyboarding to the actors, to everybody ahead of set? Or is it just something for you, the master and commander, to have on your person and maybe like give to the lighting guy so that he can do his thing? How do you make sure that everybody's on the same page in that sense?
It's different for every project. On this project, I didn't. There was a whole reason for that. We did send references and notes back and forth from other films, but on this one, I decided not to, and it was for a few different reasons that I can go into in a second. But on other movies, I would send all of these storyboards and circulate them, where I storyboard out every single shot and I will discuss them. I didn't in this case because I had a shorthand established with this DP that I had worked with on another movie, and I felt that I wanted to be able to pick the shot there and allow people to have their creative input in the moment and see how that worked and how it evolved. Plus, we were shooting 2 cameras, which was a different than I usually do. So I wanted to have a little bit more flexibility and input from the DP on what the shot was going to be, because there's always a challenge when you're shooting 2 cameras. You're always having to dance with one camera for the other camera. And I didn't want to become too rigid. I think that's what I didn't want. And so I didn't send the storyboards around because I didn't want people coming too fixated on the storyboards. And I wanted more agility in the way we were going to plan things. So I planned out my shots. I knew where we were going each day. And then I go back through the night before. We're going to shoot the next day's stuff, and I will put all my shots into the call sheet for the next day. So I'll actually write them down, and then I'll go over those with the DP. And that, with the shifting surfaces we're experiencing with locations and such a tight schedule, and with Eric Roberts in particular, we have to adjust things because of the way that he works. I just didn't really want to become too rigid, and I think it actually worked out better in this case that I didn't do that. But there's 100 ways to make a movie, maybe a million. So I don't know if it was the right answer, but it seemed like the right one to me. Okay.
So are you involved in the casting and location, or is that all picked by Asylum for you?
No, I'm very involved with all of the cast. Yeah. I mean, the Asylum, they make very strong choices. And I'm grateful that they do include me in that conversation. And there are sometimes parts that they have to pick an actor for, a star for, because of the sales, the distribution, the marketing, the funding of it. And that's where I respect those choices. I might, if there was an actor I wouldn't be willing to work with, I might say something. I haven't had that happen with them, but more than almost on all the actors, I'm picking my top three, and they are involving me in the conversation of picking the supporting roles as well. Yeah,
that's good.
So let's talk about the production. You said you were in New Mexico, correct?
That's right. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
It's a beautiful place. So I'm sure you've got a couple of fun stories you can tell us about the production. I mean, like going at that manic pace, there's no doubt, like some great stories that have to come about from that, right?
Well, yeah, New Mexico, it's an interesting place to make a movie. It's a very experienced film community. Netflix is here, Amazon Prime Studios is here, Universal just moved studios here to New Mexico. We have one of the largest crew bases in the United States, between New York and LA, Atlanta probably being a close competitor, maybe a little bit ahead now. But Albuquerque in particular has very sophisticated infrastructure for making movies. But it's still very, very challenging for a movie like this to compete with these larger shows that Netflix is bringing in. So if we're making a movie maybe 5-10 years ago, you could have just thrown a rock and gotten a pretty good crew, even on this budget level or schedule, and people would have just all come running. Now you have highly sophisticated crew members, lighting technicians, sound mixers that are being fought for by bigger productions. So thankfully I have a good crew of people that are I've worked with on several different movies. Yeah. But I think at this level, it's made it challenging. So in some cases we're still bringing in our DP from LA. We're still bringing in some of the lead actors from LA. But what's really cool is that, the actors, the talent pool of actors is really excellent here in Albuquerque, because people want to come work in New Mexico. They really, if they haven't worked in New Mexico and they're from Hollywood, they want to, because there's a lot of talk about how great the community is. So people will say, oh gosh, yeah, I normally wouldn't take a project maybe like this, but it's happening in New Mexico. I've wanted to work in New Mexico. I hear the buzz is that's the place to be. So I'll come out and do this. And that's a huge plus. We have a variety of topography here, ranging from the mountains to rivers to lakes to deserts, and then even a city that you can double for a big city. It's not a big city. It's a medium-sized city, about 1 million people, but it has all the things you need to sort of, maneuver and make it work without the big city problems of traffic, and a lot of red tape. There is more red tape in terms of shooting locations. For instance, when we, for Abe versus Monster, wanted to, and this comes out of my wife, Stacy, she's phenomenal at picking locations. She has this instinct about where things should feel and where they should go. And I wish she was here right now. I'd love for her to come in and share on this. But she was working with the film commission, and we wanted a rooftop right in the downtown Albuquerque, and we ended up using it for this big battle that goes down, and the price for getting an entire skyscraper or even a parking garage, it's very expensive because there's a lot of competition for these locations from Amazon and Netflix and things like that. but she was able to get through to the film commission and really connect with them, connect with the parking garage till they really gave it to us for free. And that was all her coordination. I give Stacy all the credit for that, because it ended up working out as a great location. It was fun to shoot in. We used it for we used all the different levels. We used one level for a different part of DC, of course, then they go through and do the VFX and stuff. We use another area for the Pentagon. We use another for general, and we just picked it. And you look in any different direction in Albuquerque, and it looks totally different. So you've got big skyscrapers in one direction. You've got just sky as far as the eye can see in another direction, and then more like, quaint type of downtown buildings, apartment buildings in another direction. And it feels pretty interesting to shoot there. So that worked out for us. On other occasions, it's been much, much more challenging. I mean, I just did a movie that's intended for a Hallmark. It's a romantic comedy. After this,
I couldn't have figured.
Yeah, it's A First Monster. It's a Hallmark wedding movie. These things, you could even just play them together. No, I'm just kidding. But the thing is that it had a bigger budget, because it's intended for Hallmark. And we had a much harder time getting very normal, accessible locations like street corners. It's like as the budget grows, the difficulties grow with it. It doesn't become easier. Well, you can throw a check at a location and, the problems just go away. No, they don't. Actually,
then it's basically then they know you'll pay.
Yeah.
So
They'll up the price. Yeah.
They're like, they've got money. We're going to make more problems for them, so we get more money. And in fact, unlike Ape versus Monster, there's like a genuineness to the crew. We really want to see this come together because we know we're the underdog, and we want to make this as good as we can be, making it for the audience. So we help us out. And people generally do. They don't always, but they have helped us a lot. We got a huge property out in the desert. One of my favorite location was just this, where the capsule lands at the beginning of the movie.
Yeah.
And it's out in the middle of nowhere. And there's a few callback scenes where they're walking around the capsule, and it's just desert. And it was so cool to get that property for a couple $100. And it just came about through our production manager. They actually had put a bid on that property to build some studios there. And he just thought, I'll just put a call in. And sure enough, we got it for nothing. If we had been making the Avengers, we probably would have been charged $50,000 to shoot there. The entire budget of the movie. So I just am so grateful that we're able to get it done, and we're able to do these things. And you kind of just feel like, gosh, let's just do this and get it done, because we're so grateful that we have the opportunity to even make this movie, with all the constraints that are against us, to see people push forward and give their everything for it. It made it very, very exciting and satisfying. We had those military Humvees basically given to the movie for next to nothing. I could go on and on about the things, but I just don't take it for granted, because, regardless of what you think of the movie, we as a team making it really poured our hearts into it and really enjoyed that process of like a family, of doing this. And, when I get out there and I'm like, making all the sound effects of the monster creeping up on the guy who's wandering around the capsule, patrolling it, and I see the reaction in his eyes, and it's genuine. It's Burns. I don't know if you remember the guy with the flashlight. He's wandering around. Well, I was making those monster noises and becoming the monster, and I just have to become like a kid again. And I see it kind of light him up, but not only him, but make the crew laugh, and have a good time. Then I feel like this is worth doing, because there's a lot easier ways to make a little bit of money, but it's a privilege that the market would even, whatever the market can bear for a movie like this, that would allow the Asylum, as a name, people who do this for a living, to give it to us to say, yeah, let's see what you can do with this. I'm thinking, I feel pretty grateful. Yeah.
That's awesome.
I don't know if you're allowed to say actually, but what is the budget for Ape versus Monster?
Yeah, I don't think it's really good for me to say the exact number because here's why. It's not just to say, because that number that I would give of what we had to spend isn't really a reflection of the total budget, because there's
the marketing and
there's other costs in the studio in LA. They're putting in the VFX and the editing and the administrative.
Okay, yes, you don't see any of that.
That factor it in, but I can tell you this: it's well under $1 million. Well under $1 million. Well under $1 million. So I can't say what it is, but I would say that if you're looking at a movie of this length, you should definitely have over $500,000, which we did not have. Yeah.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you spoke about visual effects, and I think that's a great segue to the final part of our podcast after we take a quick break.
Hi, welcome back to Kaiju Curry House. I'm Daniel Lusko, the director of Ape vs. Monster. I'm excited to be here to wrap up the last part of the show with you here.
Oh, fantastic. So what we were going to go over and ask you questions about was the visual effects of Ape vs. Monster. All of our fans are kind of drawn to the apes and the monsters, so we're saving the best for last in a sense. So where did the creatures come from? Who designed them? Did you have input? Can you just take us through how that happened?
So Glenn Campbell is the head of the VFX department at the Asylum, and I would credit them for the wonderful work that they did in a very, very tight schedule on the monsters and the ape. As far as I know, the inspiration comes from a lot of what I see in the background, which is the history of these characters of Godzilla versus King Kong historically. Now, did I have input into it? I had some input. I did. I was involved with giving some feedback on the monster, and I am very, very excited with how the monster, which is the Godzilla character, turned out in the movie. I mean, I think some of his moments are some of the best in the movie. We had a lot of conversations going into this about how I could, as a director, really become these characters for the actors, be very specific with how we were going to stage the actors. And, the Asylum did the famous Sharknado movies. And one thing that I like to talk about that's really funny, when I had conversations with him, he said, Daniel, we had such a hard time creating the sharks flying out of the tornado in Sharknado because the director, he did not specifically enough tell the actors where they were getting bitten or eaten by the sharks. He just, whenever the shark was flying out of the tornado in Sharknado, he would just yell, "Shark!" And all of a sudden the actors were supposed to react. And he said, that makes it really hard because as a VFX team, if you're not specific enough, then we have to guess. So the more precise you can be about the way you're going to move the actors and get into conversation with me. So you asked about sharing the storyboards. I did share the storyboards with the VFX team because I feel that in those cases, I want to be in sync with them, especially when it comes to how the choreography and the VFX is going to work. So we did a lot with the stunt coordination too. And this is where, on a very, very tight schedule, like a 6-day schedule to make a movie, usually is not possible to do sophisticated rope pulls and stunts. Our VFX supervisor and I had conversations about doing some practical work, getting very specific about how the monster was going to, or the ape was going to mess with the actors and the characters. And then our stunt coordinator, Gary, who's Hong Kong trained, he's a real stunt coordinator, trained in Hong Kong, who understands martial arts in ways I don't. And the way he handled the actors was fun for me. He really helped me get specific about what we could do in harnessing ropes and yanking these actors in very specific ways that the VFX could coordinate with. So that made it, I think, a little more, let's say, exact or effective, I guess the word would be, or efficient even, maybe on the VFX side, that you may not experience if you're doing this quick schedule and you're just trying to get the movie done, and you sort of spin out a little bit and you compromise. You're always making compromises in order to achieve a certain end. But if the way we were able to plan the shots very accurately weeks in advance, and then have conversation with the stunt coordinator about what we could and couldn't do, more importantly, what we weren't going to do, really helped. Because I think the mistake that can be made, and is often made on a budget like this or a schedule like this, the director has in his mind, well, wouldn't it be nice to have this character do this, and then fall out, and he doesn't discuss it or coordinate it with the team early in advance to find out that it's not going to be practical. It's not going to be possible to then determine an alternate solution. And we had those cases. Then you kind of just end up making compromise after compromise, And I think that when it comes to the VFX, getting as clear as we could, and I think there are areas I wish I could have even got clearer on, about what are their snags, what really bother them, because they have such a short time to work on the VFX, so that we can just knock those things out, and then get really clear with the stunt coordination about what we can and can't do. And of course, having really great stunt guys who are willing to try stuff that's going to get in sync with the camera work, because I see the camera, I see the stunt coordinator, I see the stunts all as one thing that has to operate to make an effect. If those things don't get into sync, it's just not as fun, and I think it's just not as entertaining to watch. But I think we synced up on those things a lot of the time, and it makes it pretty entertaining to watch. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think it was a very entertaining film to watch. I watched it with my partner, and it was definitely a pizza and beer movie. That's what we were hoping it would be. And yeah, it's fun. It's really fun. And it's not one of those movies that, like by any stretch of imagination, that you'd have people come in and try and highbrow and everything. You watch films like this to have fun and just have a group of friends around. And it's one of those films that like I'd happily keep on the background at a party, just like we're serving out pizza and nachos and stuff like that. It's a fun, that is its place to be. And it's fantastic in that sense. And when you talk about visual effects, there are a couple of good points that I really enjoyed. The night fight in DC was well done. There were a lot of great decisions that were made in the visual effects there. So when you have computer generated monsters, having them in the bright sun, I guess it would be cruel to say that it showcases anything that was missed, but at the same time, it's a very tricky thing to pull off, having it in the sun. So having a night fight in DC was really great. That was one of the things that in Jurassic Park, when computer generated monsters and dinosaurs and all this stuff were getting started, they did a dark, rainy area for the T-Rex rather than showcase it in full daylight, because that's the tough thing to do. So when the predominant amount of the action in the movie takes place at night in DC with some great pyrotechnics, I think that was really well done for a climax of the film. And I think it added a lot to it. I think that was a very smart decision to go that route.
And that was a decision on the part of the screenwriter. And I thank him for it, because it did sell really well. And it was fun to watch. And I think another thing to give credit to is the actors, because one thing that I had said to them is, look, if we don't buy it and we don't believe in it, if we can't fully suspend our disbelief, nobody else is going to. And I think the actors did a terrific job of that as well. So I was going to hope my wife could come in and say hi before we wrap it up. She's a production designer on 8 vs. Months. We were just talking about how wonderful
Hello.
the locations were. This is Stacy, and
Hello, Stacy.
I wanted her to be able to say hi. Yeah.
Hello. We hear that you're the actual talent behind this film. Someone's been speaking very highly of you.
Yep, that's right.
Thank you. We like working together. We've had our ups and downs for sure, but it's really rewarding at the end of the day to be able to look at something as delightful as this project and know that we took something that was, I don't know,
impossible.
Yeah, it really did. I mean, I shed more tears in the production of this movie, I think, trying to pull all those details together. But now that we see it, it's so rewarding. So
it's really cool to be talking to these guys. They're in the UK. He's from Kansas. And and the other, he's Paul, right? Is from the UK. He's near Cambridge.
Terrific.
So it's very, very cool. They were just complimenting the night fight, and I was telling them about the parking garage location that you found, and he was saying that was one of their favorite parts of the movie.
Oh, terrific! So that's great to hear.
Wonderful.
Awesome.
Yeah, it was also. The other bit that I really enjoyed was when the capsule lands and just like the general chaos that goes on around that prop. He
designed that entire capsule from scratch. Yeah, so we had virtually no money to create it. Netflix quoted us about $10,000 to make it, and we built it ourselves for next to nothing. But she really oversaw that whole thing, and that's one of the coolest little set pieces of the movie.
I love that piece. It was really surprising to see it come together because, like you said, the quotes were way more than we had to spend on this capsule. And I thought, what are we going to do? People were saying, oh, you're going to have to build it out of cardboard. And I thought, cardboard? I don't care how well we paint it.
Cardboard
will never sell.
Was terrible.
Cardboard, chrome paint, and matte finish. So when you put a matte sealant on it, and you can use tacks for rivets. I've seen it done.
I mean, I have heard
it. You can pull it off, but it's a faff.
Right. And I just had this, we were on a team meeting and I just thought, we're just going to build it. And our art director's so talented. His cousin was able to weld the frame and then he attached all of the pieces, but to conceptualize it and then actually pull it together for, I mean, a fraction of what our quote was, it really is, it's a star.
Yeah, it was a star. Yeah. It's a fantastic prop because when you guys were like when it was there doing its thing, you could see controls and stuff on the inside. The actual details were thrown into there and you had like the little sparks and the different buttons and panels, whatever, were lighting up in their own little retro way because this was like an 80s spacecraft. I want to say 80s. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
But it was well done. It was really well done.
Oh, and thank you so much.
Well, it's one of those things because you guys could have just as easily taken some sheet metal, put tacks on it over a frame. It would have been a 2-dimensional thing, and then just had someone banging on like a piece of like plastic for the window or something. But you actually went the full detail. You did a 360-degree prop, and then you had the electronics and the inside kitted out as well. Kudos to that. Like we take a really big we take a stance of really high appreciation for practical effects on this podcast, and we will sing their praises whenever we can. And with a film like this, obviously, like the monsters, the practical effects that would have been necessary to bring them to life in any capacity, you kind of had to like bypass that a little bit. But like in all other areas, the practical effects were done really well. Like what you guys could implement was there, and I have to give you some kudos for that. It was well done.
When you talk about the monsters, talk about Steven Spielberg, he created whatever he could of the shark. So for us, we couldn't create the full monster, so what we could do is create the ape arm, and our daughter actually did that and did all the design elements on the ape arm, and so that we could use it when the ape goes to grab people, we could have them react, and it was so amazing. So I wanted Hope to even come and say hello. We're on the show with these guys from UK.
We are
Hope
getting
right here. She did all the design.
Oh wow! Hi.
Hey Hope.
Arm, which is the only thing we could do for the King Kong character.
So
we were just telling them about how she did work on that. Wanted her to be able to say hi. What did you do? Can you explain what you did?
So basically, I had these arms because they had the gloves already, but the fur was sort of ragged and not really in the best of shape. So
it wasn't furry, yeah.
Yeah, it was more wiry. So I took the fur off that was already on there. I got the new fur and I glued it on in different pieces. I sort of ruffled it up a little bit, and then I used some like watered down brown paint to sort of add to the, I don't know,
texture. Yeah. That's really awesome.
It turned out really awesome. It really helped with the actors and the stunt guys to be able to sell the ape when he breaks through the glass or any of that stuff. That was the ape arm that she made. And again, these are things that we're doing as much as we possibly can to bring that into the practical effects. So it's not all just, digital stuff, and they can work off of all the real stuff that we did. That
did you, actually. By any chance, did you use the old, what do you call it? Tennis ball on a pole trick that they used in Jurassic Park? Have you heard of that one?
Oh, the tennis ball on a pole. So we did have a long PVC pipe in order to gauge the height of it when we were in production. So we were doing that. We had a 15-foot version and a 7-foot version, and we would carry it around so that they could scale the height. Yeah.
Yeah. And so folks who are listening, what we're talking about is an eye line. So going back to Jurassic Park or an ape versus monster, these monsters, these dinosaurs, whatever you want to like imagine, they aren't there on set with the actors. And the actors, they have amazing imaginations. They're trained professionals. However, if you get one actor looking at a lower eye line or lower height than another one, then you will have like, when it comes time for visual effects to add the monster back in, you could potentially have one actor looking at the monster's face, but then the other actor might be looking at their crotch.
Exactly.
So it's very important to have an eye line. I mean, an actor, a scientist may suddenly be gobsmacked by the crotch. We don't know about these monsters, but you just have to make sure that that's uniform. And again, and that's for the visual effects folks who come by later, it makes their job easier. So yeah, this is aiding an actor's imagination, and it's a good way to get consistency for special effects.
That's right. Aiding them, getting them into the moment, whatever you can, whether it's a pole or whether it's an ape arm or it's making the noises. You got to do whatever you can to make it real for them, because that's ultimately what we're sharing with the actors. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, it has come to that point in the podcast where we have to make our recommendations. So we're going to go through and give you our, if nothing else's, the things that we think you could take away if you really enjoyed Ape versus Monster, or if you're looking for something monster related, we're going to give those recommendations now. Daniel, how about you first?
On the monster movie subject, so I would probably pick the new Godzilla King Kong movie as another recommendation. I thought it was highly entertaining.
Cool. And I think it's still in theaters for folks to see at the time of this podcast episode release. Would you recommend seeing it on a small screen or big screen? Because right now there's the option for both.
Definitely the big screen.
Definitely a big one. All right. There we go. Paul, how about you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, just to say, Daniel, thank you so much for sharing all of those stories there. I had no idea that your whole family was involved in the production.
That's a family affair.
That's just absolutely amazing. That must really, just working all together and seeing the end result must just be fantastic.
It's cool seeing it all over the world. And we've got to actually take our son somewhere right now, so I actually have to get going too. But man, this has been awesome. I can't wait to see what you guys do, and I'm going to start following this podcast too.
Oh, thanks.
Well, thank you so much for your time. If people want to follow you, do you have social media at all?
I do, and I'm on Instagram at Daniel Lusko, Daniel Lusko. Also on Facebook, Daniel Lusko. There's a fan page there as well. And also, those are the best two places to find me. Yeah.
Super. Fantastic. Awesome. Well, thank you. We won't hold you up any longer. So thank you so much for your time. And we'll make sure, we give you a follow.
Thank you, guys. All right. Take care.
Right. Bye-bye. See you later.
Catch you later.
Bye. Right. I'll quickly wrap up then with my recommendation, which will be, you've already mentioned it, Sharktopus. I love that film. When I was in my, I think, pre-20s, I would watch Asylum films all the time. It'd be like Friday or Saturday night, either have friends over or I'm just having a few lemonades. Those were the films that you'd stick on. And they might be on the background. You might also be playing about on your phone or something, but they They're such fun. And Sharknado was one, not Sharknado, sorry, which is also good, but Sharktopus was just one that was just different enough to kind of elevate it to be not so bad it's good, but actually just I really just did enjoy it a lot and would watch it more than once.
Yeah, I was going to say, in the United States, Sci-Fi Network they
Yes.
show all the Asylum films, and it's really easy access. So if you're bored at like 10 p.m., there's going to be an Asylum film
That's it.
on
There's
the
always a
Sci-Fi
monster
channel.
movie on Sci-Fi, isn't there? It's great.
Yeah, Dino Croc versus Mega Shark, or like whatever. They're there.
Yeah, I think I've got a lot of them.
There you go. All right, so I'll finish up with my recommendations. Ape versus Monster. Grab your COVID is thankfully more or less coming to an end in the United Kingdom, as Boris says, on July 19th. So stay safe, folks. But if all goes according to plan, have your friends around, have some lemonades, watch Ape versus Monster, have a fun time. And then the other thing I'm going to say is Godzilla Singular Point. Watch it.
Yes,
It
I
is
concur.
so good.
Watch.
And I'm not going to spoil anything, but in a previous podcast, I was asked if there would be a second season, and it certainly looks like it's going to happen. So
Okay, cool.
watch Godzilla Singular Point and have yourself a great time. Folks, this has been episode 73 of Kaiju Curry House. And as always, we say goodbye with Keep It Kaiju.